Hi and welcome. I'm Scott Humphrey, CEO of the World Floor Covering Association, joined by Holly Jolly Keith Campbell over there.
Merry
If
Christmas,
you
you
can't read
filthy animal.
I love it. I love it. Thank you guys for joining us for the third part in this series called A Leader's Journey. You've probably seen or have heard about the previous episodes we've done with Howard Brodsky, Pete Dosh, but very excited today to have Keith Campbell with us. I've known Keith for quite some time, certainly since I've been in this role with the WFCA. He is so highly respected within the industry and just a fountain of wisdom. And we were just chatting before we came on live, and I'm telling you, you can't sit with Keith without learning, even in the idle moments. And it's just a blessing to have him on here with us. He is the chairman of the board of Mannington Mills, and he'll tell you more about Mannington, more about the Campbell family and their impact. And I've asked him to share more of that because it's so intertwined with his story. Keith, thank you for being with us and setting aside time during the holiday season to share with us some of your wisdom and invest in other leaders.
Well, thank you very much, Scott. And first off, to everyone, a very Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year. It's a wonderful time of the year, and thank you. I'm honored to be on the podcast.
Keith is going to be sharing some of his insight with us. And guys, if you're not familiar with this, the whole premise of this is not so much about the industry. It's more about the person. Keith is obviously a person who's highly respected as a leader within our industry. And it's really about helping us understand how he got to be who he is and applying those same principles to our lives. Let me give you a quick commercial for the WFCA, and then we're going to get into the meat of this conversation. The World Floor Covering Association exists to ensure the success and profitability of professional flooring dealers and to represent their common interest. And very blessed that during this year and this crazy time, our membership has exploded. If you're not a part of the WFCA, we would certainly love to have you be a part so we can combine your voice with ours to deal with issues that are impacting us, like COVID legislation, the installation crisis, and many other things. This podcast will be available to you on WFCA.org immediately after this, well, within a few hours. And you'll also be able to find the two previous ones that we have done. We'll continue to do this throughout 2021 and share some more insights with you. But again, very thankful to have Keith with us. Keith, I always start with this very basic question, and that is for you to tell us your story. What is the story of Keith Campbell?
Well, Mannington, or as we call it here in Salem, by its proper name, Mannington Mills. A lot of people know it as Mannington Residential or Mannington Commercial or Burke or Amtico, and now Phoenix and Far. I grew up in Salem, New Jersey, and later bought my parents' house. And that home is a quarter of a mile from the manufacturing plant here in Salem.
Wow.
It is, and Salem is, for those of you not from this area, you say New Jersey, and you're probably thinking of the New Jersey Turnpike up in North Jersey, but we're way down in the bottom of New Jersey and South Jersey. It's a rural, agrarian county. It's the least populated county in the state, and so it's small town. It is small town. And so here we are, we lived, my three sisters, mom and dad, grandparents next door, next to the family business. And, it's like a member of the family. And in this case, a very large member of the family is at the dinner table and is intertwined in everything that we do. And it continues to be. So our life revolved around Mannington Mills. And my dad was president and CEO at that time. It was a smaller company. We manufactured just sheet vinyl. And in those days, we manufactured 9x12 linoleum rugs. And actually, that was a good chunk of our sales when I was a kid. And that's where the family business started in 1915. So on the 28th of this month, we will be 105 years old. and
That's awesome.
started by my great grandfather and his two sons. And one of those sons was my grandfather. So having that family business right next door, our lives revolved with everything to do with Mannington Mills. And so,
Did you always know, Keith, that you were going to go into it? Did you always know that that would be a part of your
well,
heritage?
yeah, sort of. Yeah. I mean, was it assumed? I guess sort of, kind of. My dad always said you can do whatever you want, but I never found anything halfway as interesting as this plant and these people. And
Yeah,
also it was a small community, and all of the officers lived within a 10-mile radius of each other. So we, they were an extended part of the family. And when I was a kid, and my sisters, I mean, the first outside of the family CEO that we had was Art Williams, and who's a former Hall of Fame member.
Hall of Fame, yes.
And Art, he was Uncle Art. The head of sales was Mel Haynes. It was Uncle Mel and Aunt Jean. And our families intertwined with each other, and we grew up together. A lot of which was in the backyard of our house with a pool in the summer times. I mean, there was a picnic every Sunday, and members of the Mannington family showed up. And
wow.
it was just kind of growing up in that milieu. So my first, professional engagement with Mannington, I was a sophomore in high school, painting the back end of the shipping department walls. And I wasn't allowed around equipment. I wasn't old enough, but my dad and my mom wanted to get me out of the house and let me do something productive. But after I became of age, which I think was like 17, I began working in the plant in the summertime, and I spent 5 summers working in the manufacturing complex. And I worked my way through all the various departments and all the machine positions, and worked in quality control. And it was an incredible experience because, you have to realize these are Jersey people here. There's a difference between the South and the North. I mean, I call the South, when someone's giving you some attitude, bless your heart, right? That's the South.
We're guilty.
And these are Eagles fans here, NFL Eagles fans, and they're the toughest fans in the world. And their attitude was, "What's your problem?" So these were tough guys, and I loved every second of it. You had to learn how to take a punch, and you had to learn to be very careful in how you came back. But you had to come back, but in a nice,
to be respected,
jovial way. But you had to learn how to take it, and you had to learn to diplomatically give it. And but that was a wonderful experience. And from the day one that I walked in, and I went to work in the maintenance shop with 40 guys that were tough, I loved it. I loved every second of it. And I have loved every day that I've worked in the company. Now, when I graduated from college, and I went to Muskingum College in New Concord, Ohio. It's a small liberal arts school. And it was absolutely the best school for me to go to because I found my academic wits about me there. I was not exactly what you would call an academic performer before then. But after I had some assignments in the plant to do, I thought I was going to go immediately into the sales field. It got delayed a little bit, but I went down and was the assistant district manager. And this was just on the Mannington residential side. And it was just sheet vinyl. That's all that we had. And I went down to Orlando, Florida, and I covered the state of Florida for Mannington. And And I had a boss who was in Atlanta, and he was the #1 district manager for the company. There were only, when I came on board, I think I was number 12 in the sales field. I mean, Mannington was quite small. I thought it was bigger than US Steel, but it was quite small. And so I started out as an assistant district manager, lived in Orlando for a short amount of time, and realized that it was better for me to live in Tampa. So I moved over to Tampa, and for 3 or so years, I was an assistant district manager, and I learned an awful lot. It was a period of time in the late 70s when it was there was a boom going on as far as home building and whatnot. So you didn't need to be the best salesman in the world to sell products, but I had great distributors, and I learned a lot, and I loved it. And the best thing that happened is while I was down in Tampa, my mother told me I should go back to church. And so I said, you know, that's a smart thing. I really should be going to church. And so we're a Presbyterian family. And so I found a Presbyterian church. And after about 3 Sundays, the assistant minister took me aside, and he said, you know, we have a young college and career age group that meets on Sunday mornings before church. Would you like to attend? And I said, yeah, I think I will. And so I went, you know, and there's a group of people in there, and I got a cup of coffee, and we kind of waited, and suddenly the Sunday school teacher showed up, and it was a good looking blonde. I mean, I went, you know, thank you, Jesus. I think I found the right thing here. And that was my wife, Shirley. So
that's awesome.
I told Shirley, I didn't ask her out at the end of the first Sunday school class. It was the second. And on I guess the second weekend that I dated her, I told her I was going to marry her. And that was 41 years ago. So by far the best thing that happened in my sales assignment was finding Shirley, because she's been my guiding light ever since. And anyone that's ever met her will certainly agree. I married way over myself. But
there's no better way to prove your selling ability than the fact that people have met your wife. I understand.
So I went then. I got promoted from the #1 sales territory that Mannington had, and the company was growing. And I moved to Maryland, and they kind of started consolidating some territories that weren't quite as big. So they sort of took Virginia and Maryland and married them together. And I had Maryland and Virginia and one side of West Virginia as my sales territory as a district manager, mind you. And so I was all 25, I think, 25 or 26, but I was young. And I went from the best sales territory to the worst. I went from #1 to the bottom of the pack. And it was also in 1980 and 81, and that was a major recession. And I had distributors go out of business. I had all kinds of stuff that I had to deal with, and it was a tremendous learning experience. And then I wasn't down there very long, just short of 2 years. I guess that they took a look at it and they said, things aren't going so well down in Maryland. Maybe we need to switch Keith out. And the smartest thing I ever did was hire a guy by the name of Jack Lawless. Well, I didn't hire him, but I found him, and the officers hired him. And Jack took that territory over his career and built it into the top territory that we had, or one of the top. But I then moved to the corporate office here in Salem, and I had a string of different assignments. First in internal sales, then over onto the finance side. I handled was in human resources, personnel. I had some plan assignments. I was given a building to build. I'd never built a doghouse. And I was given a $1.5 million building to build. And of course, my father kicking me every step of the way as far as what I was doing right and wrong. but eventually, I worked my way all through that and was made an officer of the company at a rather young 29 or whatever I was. And I was in charge of international sales and national account sales. Then went from that to VP of sales. And from VP of sales, I was executive vice president. I did a stint in total quality for a while. Again, always kind of circulating. And then I guess it was 1997, I became chairman of the board. And I've been in that slot ever since. And you know, it's just been amazing because I was given a lot of jobs. When I went in, I did not know what in the heck I was doing. I really didn't have a clue. And my dad said, "Don't worry." He said, "In 6 months, you'll figure it out." And also what I knew is that there were a lot of people working with me that wanted me to learn and were willing to teach me the ropes. And I got the best education that you could ever imagine. And so, that in a nutshell is how I got started in the business and how I sort of wandered my way into becoming chairman. And but
Keith, this is one of the things I admire about you is many people think because you're a Campbell that you just immediately stepped into the role as chairman of the board, and you go through that lineage of what it took for you to get there.
Yeah.
You also mentioned your father quite a bit, and I know he had a big impact on your life. Speak a little bit to your father's impact and the other people that impacted you along the way.
Well, Dad was huge, and even though my dad passed away 20 plus years ago, he's with me every moment of the day. And there are any one of a number of things that were just, things that he would say, "Don't you forget about this. This is important, and I'm telling you." And anyone that has been fortunate to have as good a relationship as I've had with my dad, whether it's in a business or not, those lessons that a dad and a mom teach you should remain with you for as long as you're on this earth. And so my dad had a huge impact. I can go through a litany of Mannington officers who've just been so kind and gracious and teaching me and helping me, including the current group that are here. And they're great people, but probably next to my dad, and again, Art Williams was tremendous, and he was a different personality type than my dad, and just as demanding. And he was fabulous. We had a CEO that came in during a crisis, and his name was Tony Kelly. And Tony's background, he was the president of Bigelow, and that's how he got his floor covering background. And he and his partner Rudy Goulet sold Bigelow, and Tony was available, and we were so fortunate to have him because he helped and he led Mannington through the Mannington gold crisis. He didn't create it. He cleaned up the mess. And I tell you, Tony taught me so many things, and also taught me what the role of chairman in this unique situation that we have at Mannington should be. Because, in many family-owned businesses, the family run the business. That's how they do it. And, but my dad early on realized that the company needed outside expertise, and it was getting big, and it was hard for one person to manage. And that's when he brought in Art Williams, and Art was trained, or Art came from Armstrong. So my dad set it up that, and it was always the way that we wanted to do it was to bring in outside of the family CEO to run the day to day. And then the office chairman is the representation of the Campbell family. And so I call it the secret sauce of Mannington, because the CEO has someone that they can go to. And also, I'm engaged in the business, just like my dad was engaged in the business. And you can turn around and sort out your opinions as to where you think the direction of the company should be going. And it's always worked out tremendously. But you really have two individuals who are working in tandem to help execute the strategy of the company. And in our case, the big strategy is maintaining a family-owned, privately held business, which is very unique and very different, not only in the floor covering industry, manufacturing world, but also pretty much very different when you take a look at family-owned businesses across the spectrum in the manufacturing world.
Yeah, especially to the fourth generation. And you said you've already, as we talked before this, you've already got some fifth generation working within Mannington.
Yeah, we do, and I'm very proud of these guys. They're really doing a wonderful job. Zach Zaner is the president of our residential business, and he's my nephew. I have two other nephews that are in sales, one in commercial, one in residential. They're doing extremely well. I have a cousin. He could call me uncle, but he's a cousin technically. He's in business analytics. He was in commercial. Now he's in residential. And my son Johnny. So there's another Johnny. Johnny is an information systems guy, and he runs the Salesforce.com platform for our commercial and residential group. It's interesting to family-owned businesses. I set a rule in place, and maybe we can talk about one of the things that we started here a little bit later. But the family council agreed with it. For a family member to come into the business here at Mannington, it is not a shoo-in. So the rule is that anyone coming in must be over the age of 30. So this forces someone to go into the outside world before they come into the insular world here at Mannington. And they also must have a postgraduate degree that's applicable in our business. Oh, wow. So of the group that I mentioned, they all have MBAs, and Zach is a lawyer. And Zach has gotten all kinds of financial training as he has gone through his ramp up at Mannington. But it's interesting. A tough thing for family-owned businesses is, how do you bring family members in? And our family members, they work just like any other Mannington associate. And in every instance, their boss is not a family member. They don't report to me. They report to a boss who is not a family member. And they know they got to perform. It's not easy being a family member in a big family business. You live in a fishbowl. Everyone sees everything you do and say, and they know the mistakes you make. So it's a different world.
And the expectation, I would think, is probably even higher just because of the name. I mean, even for you when you're in the sales field.
Yeah, it is. And you when things don't go right, you take it personally, and I come in and I help prop them back up and say, come on, let's go. We got it. Don't think about that bad shot you just had. You have another shot to hit. Let's go get them. And in my case, when things don't go quite right, I have a fabulous wife. I have 3 older sisters that are just terrific. And so that's the moral support I get. And also Russell Grizzle, our CEO, he helps me all the time, so at any rate, we do this thing together.
Keith, you mentioned Russell. I've had the privilege of meeting and spending some time with Zach. Everybody in the industry knows Jay Copelson. You surround yourself with some really great people. What do you look for as a leader? What do you look for in the people that you put in leadership?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, you really want to hire good people. You know, we want people here to be good people. Now, you know, you're going out, and if you're going out and you're hiring and you're looking, I mean, you certainly have internal specifications that you want to see as far as experience levels and the like. But the key thing is you want to hire good people. Tony Kelly once told me, gentleman that I mentioned earlier, he said, "We don't have rooms for jerks here." And so at any rate, and that's true. It's true. So, you know, someone that we want to bring in, and I don't care whether they're wherever they are in the organization, they have to have a true sense within themselves of being able to get along for the common good of the company. And it's not about them, although it is, but it's more about the success of the company overall that truly matters. And their personality and how they get along with people is a key criteria.
Yeah, I talked about this in the last Leadership Live I did, this importance of relationships and being a contagious leader, that people really they long to be around your leadership. And when I think about people like Jay, who was obviously an inspiration for that Leadership Live, you have people around you that really seem to be customer focused, customer centric. Their goal is to make sure, they seem to understand that if the customer succeeds, we succeed.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of organizations that function the other way.
And in my role as a leader of the company, I have different sets of customers.
Correct.
All right. So I've got our associates here at Mannington. They're my customers. You know, they're the ones I want to turn around and fire them up and to keep them fired in the business, or keep them fired up in the business. And those relationships are extremely important. You know, the relationships with our end use customers, whether they be retailers or flooring contractors or you know, might be a large corporate group or whatever that may be, those relationships are extremely important. I don't own all those relationships. The company owns them. Yeah. And we manage those, we manage those relationships. And then we have relationships with our vendors. They're extremely important to us. They keep things moving here. And they're extremely important. Again, I don't know all the vendors, but those relationships the company owns. And, you know, then you have your financial partners, your bankers. And, you know, we've done acquisitions and whatnot. And having those relationships, solid relationships, are extremely important. My dad told me something. He said, you know, the success in business is how you manage relationships. If you manage your relationships well, you will be successful beyond belief. And, you know, and Dad was right. Dad was right. That's one of those things that you turn around and said, how often do you talk to your dad? All the time. And there was some of those lessons that he taught me, but that's a huge one about relationships.
Yeah, that's important. So from a leadership style, you almost described yours in answering that question, Keith. Obviously, you're not a micromanager because you hire people and allow them to do the job and to develop the relationships that are necessary. Any other way you would describe your leadership style?
Well, you know, we had a guy a number of years ago who was going for a doctoral degree, and he came in and he interviewed me, and at the end of it, he brought out this wheel, and I'd never seen it before, and it had 10 different styles of leadership, and almost to a T, I fell into a servant leader. A servant-driven leader. And so that leadership style is one that is basically there to empower people to do the job, and to also motivate them, and do everything that you possibly can to give them the tools in order for the company to be successful. And over the years, especially once I became chairman, and I kind of figured that one out, because again, you have to remember my history is I got into a lot of jobs that I was totally underqualified for, and I had to figure it out on my own. But I realized that approach is the best approach for what I am doing. And also in my attitude as it relates to the outside world, whether it be in the community or the industry or whatever, I have things I can give that can help, but I can't do them all myself.
Yeah, you say that, Keith, but I know you're one of the busiest people I know in the industry, and you don't just serve, you don't just serve in the industry. You serve on a lot of boards. You're very philanthropic in your mindset. You want to give back. It's obviously part of who you are, and that's how you're wired. That takes a lot of time. How do you determine what you're going to commit yourself to, and how do you find the time to do all that?
Well, number one, I'm ADD. So
You've got to be busy.
I have to be busy, and I'll be busy doing nothing. But I like staying busy all the time. I hate being bored. But the other thing is that once you're overextended, you learn how to deal with that. I mean, you just do. And
You have to.
there's an old expression is that if you want something to get done, give it to a busy guy or girl or lady, right? So I've been involved here in the community in Salem in particular. United Way, I chaired, fundraising, chair of the United Way board. We're actively involved. I have been, Zach now, in economic revitalization of our town here, because this is the Rust Belt, and so there are a lot of needs in this community. I've been on the board of the community hospital, chaired it. I've been on the board of our local state university up the road here. I was on that board for 16 years, chaired it for 3 years. Trying to think, just here in the community, obviously my church, that's a big one, but I've been on the session numerous times. And FCIF, I was on the
WFCA.
floor covering credit group, chaired that for a while. Let me see, I was on the Federal Reserve of Philadelphia for 6 years. That was interesting. I got quite an education there on money supply and higher economics that they didn't teach me at Muskingum College, believe me. And I've been on the board of a publicly held natural gas utility distribution company here in South Jersey. Been on that for 20 years. I'm going to retire off of it here shortly. But I did learn a lot about energy that I never would have ever thought. And I also learned from a board level about a publicly held company and what it takes to be public. And the big picture out of that is I am sure happy that Mannington is private, because it's a different world entirely. So I've been involved in a lot of stuff, and I've stayed busy. And I would say that there was a point in time, I can't remember when, I'm sure Shirley will tell me when it was, because her memory for these things, she told me, time out, you got to start scaling back. And so I've been scaling back, but I believe, as my parents taught us, is that you have to have an attitude of gratitude. We've been given an awful lot, and the Lord has blessed our family in many ways, and primarily it's Mannington Mills. But with that, we have an obligation to give back to our communities and to do whatever we possibly can to help our communities progress.
That's a great mindset, Keith. And it truly comes through in your leadership. People see
Thanks.
that. Even those that don't know you well, they sense that That
You know,
you have a deep faith, and your faith impacts what you do.
even the, being on the board of the WFCA was very educational. I mean, all of these have been big educations, because what do I know about running a hospital? Nothing, but once you get in it, you pretty much get the picture, and it's complicated. But the WFCA, I mean, I'm not a retailer. I've sold to retailers, but I don't understand all of the problems and situations that the retailers have to go through. And I was on the board of the WFCA for a long time and got to meet a lot of great retailers. And it's not so much in the board meeting, but commiserating with them, during a cocktail party or during dinners or this, that, and the other, that you understand what their problems are and you understand their business models. And it really helps develop what in your company that you have to help provide them. And
And we thank
that was
you.
very educational.
You served a long time. Very thankful for that. You were
Wow,
here
it was
most
fun.
of my early years in the role. Can you speak a moment to the FCIF for those that may not be real familiar with it? I know it's a passion of yours. You've been
Yep.
very involved in the leadership there. Would you speak to why that's important to you?
Well, I think, we have a great industry. It is a fabulous industry. No matter where
Yes,
you
it
may
is.
be in that picture, a manufacturer like ourselves, distributor, retailer, flooring contractor, it's a great industry. And one of the best parts of it is that the floor covering is going to be around for generations to come. It's not going away. And so, we're not a CB radio that's,
Yeah.
here today and
Yes.
gone tomorrow. We're evolving and we're changing and whatnot, but it's a great industry. And it's been certainly great for my family and our associates at Mannington. It's been a tremendous gift that we've been given. But with that, there are those that have extreme difficulties. They have a catastrophic disease, and it might be the fact that they're not going to live that much longer, or they're going to have long-term medical difficulties, and because of those difficulties, they can't work anymore. Their insurance has lapsed, and what they get from the government is not able to help them through the difficulties that they have. And so the Floor Covering Industry Foundation gives grants to those people that, number one, have catastrophic illness and also have extreme financial difficulties. And we give out grants to people that have worked in the industry, no matter where it may be, manufacturing, distribution, installation, you name it. And it is fabulous because there is no other industry in the United States that has something like this established. And so my hat goes off to the WFCA because they took the foundation when it was really having some difficulties and helped focus it, re-strategize it, bringing people in to on the board level to give expertise, and it has grown. And we're going to give out this year over $800,000 or close to $800,000 in grants. And the need just continues to grow as people find out more and more about it. And so I've enjoyed every second of it. And also I get to rub shoulders with some wonderful people in the industry that I really wouldn't have an opportunity to work with. And, so yeah, they might be a competitor, but we're working for the common good and you get to know them, and that's a good thing.
It is the feel good part of my job. I tell Andrea all the time, the fact that we as an industry are giving back to the people that make our jobs possible,
Yeah.
to people that have committed something or a family member that has. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for FCIF and its willingness to take the strong stand and to make a difference.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, it brings me to think about COVID and the impact it's had, because everybody now is feeling some kind of strain, maybe not catastrophic like FCIF,
Yeah.
but how have you seen leadership change, and maybe how has your leadership changed because of COVID?
Well, number one, I mean, it's been one of the most difficult years in leadership that you could imagine. I mean, we've never dealt with anything like this in the history of the modern economy in the United States or worldwide. And to suddenly have to shut down everything, or your sales outlets are shut down for the most part. It's been so difficult. We've been fortunate being a manufacturer, because even during shutdown, and even as draconian as New Jersey was early on, because we are essential in building materials are essential, we've been able to keep operating. And even though we've had initially some curtailments here and there because of volumes, I just said let's keep people employed. Let's do everything that we possibly can to keep those paychecks coming, because Mannington, at our size, we didn't qualify for any economic relief from the government.
Yeah.
So we now, could have perhaps, but I don't want the government dictating to me long term what I can do in my business either. So at any rate, so with that, there suddenly came the fact that we're going to have all of our executive team, office staff, and whatnot working remotely. Now, our systems, got the job done. I mean, those first couple meetings that you had, they were pretty interesting, weren't they? It took you 15 minutes to figure out how to operate it. Now you can operate it like you can operate your remote control and your TV. But but initially it was tough, and I also realized that there was a need to communicate like we have never communicated before. And our communications, corporate communications director, Betsy Amoroso, suggested that I do a quick telecast just to keep the spirits up. And so it's very high tech. What I do is I film. It's about 3 minutes long weekly, just like you have with your telecast. Mine's 3 minutes, and we put it out on a closed channel of YouTube. And I give weekly updates on how the company is doing, and concentrate mostly on keeping everyone's spirits up and keeping a smile on everyone's face. But also the fact, and I emphasize this at the end of every message, is while we think that we have control of our lives, we don't. We don't. Yeah. And God holds us in the palm of his hand, and God will lead us through this, whatever the outcome may be, because ultimately it's the Almighty that you face in the end, or at least that's my belief. So, it's been fun. It's been different. And when I go out to our sites, I do a lot of management by walking around and saying hi to folks and how are the kids doing and whatnot. I love that relationship. Can't do it now. Hopefully here in several months, we'll be able to get back at that. But in the meantime, the telecasts have worked out well. And also, I may add that because our business has been able to operate here in Salem as we've been going through sequestration, I've been able to come into the office every day. Now, the offices are pretty quiet, but there's a group of us, the chief financial officer, Russell Grizzle, when he's in town, he's in Georgia a good bit, our treasurer. I get to see some folks, and I get out of the house so that Shirley doesn't go stark raving nuts with me around all the time. So it's all worked out well.
That's good. What do you see for the industry, Keith, going forward? Obviously, we've seen a dramatic change this year. The big thing about COVID was nobody could see it coming. So leaders did have to adjust on the fly. But as you look forward, and this may have changed your periphery of what you saw coming, but where do you see the flooring industry going? Well,
I think this year, when we initially hit that shutdown period, and the valves turned off, or they were just a trickle, you never would have imagined, you never would have gone to Atlantic City or Las Vegas and put a bet that the residential business was going to come back in the way that it did. I didn't read anything that said it was going to happen that way. It just
No way.
suddenly came in, and it came in like a lion. And it brought with it wonderful business, but a whole host of problems. And how do you suddenly ramp back up? How's your supply chain? You got people that are out on COVID. How do it was just utter chaos. And that pace on the residential side has continued, and it's still continuing today. I was mentioning to Jay Copelson yesterday that here we are in December, and generally this is a period of time when things are getting a little slack. I mean, nobody wants their home ripped up between Thanksgiving and the holiday period. But it's pretty darn strong.
Yeah,
I've never seen a December like this in a long while. So, but that's the residential side. The commercial side is the other side of the ticket. And at Mannington, we're split between commercial and residential, and so commercial's hurting. And it'll take a while for commercial to come back, but it will, because it always does. And it's almost like a teeter-totter that you have. I mean, generally one's up, one's down, and occasionally twice in your career both are up, and that makes you a genius, but it's just economic coincidence. But and our international business has hung in there okay as well, but they've been obviously in the UK and continental Europe, which is our primary international business. It's been hit. Things in Canada have been hit as well. So it's looking forward. I think that we're going to get back to some sense of normalcy. But also as you take a look at what some of the long-term thinkers are out there, still the compounded annual growth rate for flooring is good and positive, and it's above the gross domestic product. You sort of have to take out all the swings that we've seen this year, but I mean, a compounded growth rate in the floor covering industry worldwide of 2+%, plus, that's good. And if you can double that in your growth rate within your company, you're doing something.
Yeah,
you're doing.
I'll remind everybody who's watching this, Keith, that you can ask questions at the bottom, and I've tried to I've had a few questions that were sent to me. I've tried to ask those, but if you have a question, just go down to the Q&A section and put the question in, and I'll try to get that before Keith. We've only got about 10 minutes left in our time together.
Well, time's flying while Keith, you're having fun, huh?
It is. I love these conversations. They're so comfortable. Keith, I see a lot of leaders that are so busy leading that they don't reinvest in their leadership. How do you sharpen the saw, so to speak? What do you do that keeps you abreast of the best of the best in leadership?
I read a lot. That's a very important thing as far as what other leaders, and I would say you turn around and you take a look at whether they're leading a big bank or big manufacturing companies, and what are they seeing happening. I have to tell you that some of what the tech people are saying I can't resonate with that. I mean, because I just don't. My kids call me a dinosaur. I'm a dinosaur with that. But it is. I think the key thing is that as a leader, you have to keep abreast of change. And at Mannington, we like to turn around and say, we're always working on today, and there's those quarterly, how you doing quarterly. We don't report our numbers, but you always want to compare yourselves to what your competitors are doing that do report. But the more important thing is, where are you directionally heading for the next 5 to 10 years? And then in my case, I'm like saying, okay, how am I pointing this ship for the next generation? And I want to make sure that we have a strong and healthy business. So when the next gen comes forward and they take leadership in this company, that they will have a healthy company that they can direct as it goes into the future.
So, Keith, as we come to the end of our time together, and obviously special time, it's time of hope, even though we're in a place of despair in much of the world today. And it's a time where we think about love, even though we may have enemies and there can be other things going on. But what would you say to the leaders out there that are seeking to improve themselves, and especially the leaders that want to make a difference in this industry? How would you challenge them? What would you say as your parting words with them today?
Well, Scott, you know this, and I know that our folks at Mannington know this for sure, is that my core is based upon faith. And it's, I turn around and I say, you know, I'm at the end of the day, what I do and how I do it, I want to be pleasing in the eyes of the Lord. And I don't always hit that mark. You know, that's why I go to church every Sunday, is that it's a struggle being on this earth and hitting what the Lord expects of us. But at the end of the day, it's being humble. And that core enables me, I think, hopefully, to be grounded and to be humble and to be realistic as far as, you know, what is happening, not only for me or my family, but also for the business. Don't believe your PR. Don't believe that for a second. Stay humble and stay focused. And in my case, you know, it is that core belief in the Lord that helps me stay grounded and move forward.
Yeah. So thankful for that. Thankful also that you have the courage to talk about that. A lot of people that have that faith basis aren't willing to share it. They feel like there's a cost.
I'm not one to turn around and throw a bunch of Bible verses on anyone. That's not my style. It is mostly this is who I am and this is how I operate. And we have people of all different, you know, religious persuasions at Mannington. And whoops. Believe it or not, that's a spam caller. Can you believe that? So at any rate, yeah, you can believe that.
Georgia right
now. Yeah, you're right.
With the election for the Senate going on.
Yeah, it must be. And now they aren't hitting me up for that yet. But at any rate, but again, we have people of all different faiths at Mannington, and I don't try to force anything upon anyone. I just turn around and you know, they know where I'm coming from. And there's a mutual respect on both sides as to how that is handled.
Well, I admire that about your leadership, Keith. To me, that's how faith really should be. It's not about what you say. It's not about what you preach. It's about what you live.
Yeah.
And if you're not living it, people really don't want to hear what you have to say. But because you've lived leadership, because you've impacted so many people, and you've really set a positive example in our industry, what you say does matter. I'm not surprised that we had more people listening in today than we've had on any of our webinars thus far, because people want to hear what has allowed you not only to get where you are, but also to maintain that level of performance.
Well, also, you have a very influential board member in Jay Copelson,
yes,
who called every one of his friends, you know, and there might be a lot of Mannington people on the call that, you know, but nonetheless, I want to thank everyone for being on this today. I'm honored and humbled about being selected. And Scott, you're a great leader in your own right. You've done a fabulous job in the direction of the WFCA. Many changes, all for the good. And you know, there are some things that I just I'm kind of sorry about as we go into 2021. We're not going to have surfaces. It's going to be delayed. There are not going to be road shows and things of that nature. It's going to be delayed. And for me, in many cases, that's the time I get to see our customers. And
exactly.
It you know, it's it hurts a bit, but I'll get over it. I'll be down in Georgia, maybe playing a little golf, so at any rate, won't be too bad.
We'll have all that pent up. Everybody will be ready to see each other when the opportunity comes.
Absolutely. It'll be a glory hallelujah day.
Yeah. Well, Keith, thank you again. Appreciate your
Thank you,
time with
Scott.
us. Hope your holidays are blessed and you have a great time. Thank you for all of you that tuned in with us. I remind you again, this podcast will be available on WFCA.org. You can find it there. By the way, Keith and I both mentioned FCIF. FCIF.org is a place you can go to find out more about the Fork Covering Industry Foundation. And also, if you want to donate to the Fork Covering Industry Foundation, you want a year-end donation, this would be a great time to invest in the people who make our jobs possible. Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Mannington, for what you mean to our industry.
Thank you.
Wishing you all happy holidays.
Happy holidays, everybody. Bye now.
See ya.